With the mule unloaded and the artisans beginning their work, Eli lingered near the workshops, her violet eyes scanning every detail. The air was thick with the hum of enchantments, and the faint glow of runes illuminated the intricately crafted tools and materials scattered across the workbenches. Darren followed a step behind, his rifle slung casually over his shoulder. "All right, Keebler. What's the plan? We sticking around to watch the magic happen, or are we on a scavenger hunt for elf secrets?" Eli ignored him, her focus entirely on the masterful craftsmanship before her. "You wouldn't understand," Darren smirked. "Try me." Eli sighed but gestured toward a nearby artisan, who was carefully etching glowing runes onto a piece of armor. "Look at that. Every stroke has to be precise. Perfect. One misstep, and the entire enchantment could fail." Darren tilted his head. "Looks like they're just doodling to me." "They're inscribing a binding matrix," Eli corrected, her tone sharp. "It's the foundation for any enchanted object. If I could learn even a fraction of their techniques, it would revolutionize what I can do back at the workshop." Darren raised an eyebrow. "You mean you don't already know how to do that?" "I know how to make it work," Eli admitted, her gaze never leaving the artisan. "But this is art." They continued walking, passing rows of workshops, each more impressive than the last. One artisan was weaving threads of silver light into a bowstring, while another hammered glowing shards of crystal into a sword hilt. Eli's hands itched to touch everything, but she kept them firmly at her sides. "Do you ever just ask them to teach you?" Darren asked. "It's not that simple," Eli replied, her tone tinged with frustration. "These techniques are ancient, passed down through generations. They're not going to hand them over to an outsider." Darren shrugged. "Worth a shot. Worst they can do is say no." "Or banish me from Alfheim," Eli muttered. Darren laughed. "You? Banished? Not with that winning personality." As they rounded a corner, Eli stopped abruptly, her attention caught by a particularly intricate contraption. It resembled a forge but was powered by swirling orbs of light, each orb tethered to a set of runes that pulsed rhythmically. "What is this?" Eli murmured, stepping closer. An older artisan nearby looked up, his silver hair tied back in a simple braid. "It's a lightforge," he said, his tone patient, "used for crafting weapons that channel pure energy." Eli's eyes widened. "How does it stabilize the energy flow without overloading?" The artisan chuckled softly. "You have a keen eye. The key is in the runic alignment. Each orb is calibrated to balance the others. A delicate process, but effective." Eli nodded, absorbing every word. "Would you mind if I watched for a while?" The artisan considered her for a moment, then nodded. "As long as you don't interfere." Eli glanced at Darren, her expression triumphant. "See? Some of us have tact." Darren smirked. Yeah. Just don't get too cozy. We've got a schedule to keep." While Eli immersed herself in the intricacies of the lightforge, Darren wandered toward a group of artisans crafting armor. He leaned against a nearby post, watching as they shaped glowing plates with seamless precision. "Pretty fancy work," he said, drawing their attention. "You ever make anything less shiny? Like, say, armor for someone who doesn't want to blind their enemies?" One of the artisans raised an eyebrow. "Our creations are meant to inspire and intimidate. Practicality is secondary." "Right," Darren said, nodding slowly. "And what happens when you're neck-deep in a mud pit and all that inspiration gets you spotted a mile away?" The artisan frowned but didn't reply. Darren grinned, pushing off the post. "Just a thought." After an hour, Eli rejoined Darren near the enclave's entrance, her expression a mix of satisfaction and longing. "That was incredible." Darren glanced at her. "Learn anything useful?" "More than I expected," Eli admitted, "but not enough." "Well, you've got time," Darren said with a shrug. "We'll be back." Eli smiled faintly. "Let's hope so." As they turned to head back to the portal, the robotic mule beeped softly behind them, its presence a reminder of the mission's purpose. Despite Darren's jokes and Eli's focus, the gravity of their work was never far from their minds. The late morning sunlight filtered through the intricate latticework of Eliana's residence, casting delicate patterns of light across the stone floors. Gunnar sat at the edge of the courtyard, sharpening Starbreaker with methodical precision. The steady rasp of metal on stone filled the air, grounding his thoughts as he prepared for what lay ahead. Eliana entered the courtyard quietly, her flowing robes moving like whispers of light. She carried a tray with 2 steaming mugs and set it on the table nearby. "You've been at that blade for an hour. It's sharp enough to cut through armor." "Sharp isn't enough," Gunnar replied without looking up. "Needs to be perfect." Eliana sat across from him, watching his movements. "You're restless." Gunnar set the blade down and met her gaze. "You could say that. Too much on my mind." She tilted her head, a faint smile gracing her lips. "Your team is capable, Gunnar. Eli and Darren will return with the results we need." "It's not just them," Gunnar said, leaning back in his chair. "It's everything. The Black Dawn, the nexus, the balance between realms. Feels like we're always a step behind." Eliana studied him for a moment before replying. "You've carried more than your share of burdens, but you're not alone in this fight. Your team, your allies, we all stand with you." The quiet between them stretched, filled with unspoken words. Gunnar finally broke the silence. "You know, I don't think I've ever thanked you. For everything, for trusting us, for trusting me." Eliana's eyes softened. "You've earned that trust 100 times over. And truthfully, you've done more for Alfheim and the realms than most guardians would dare to attempt." A faint smile tugged at Gunnar's lips. High praise from a guardian. Her smile mirrored his, but it didn't last long. "It's a delicate line we walk, Gunnar. The choices we make, the actions we take, they ripple through the realms. Sometimes I wonder if I've done enough, or if I've done too much." "You've done what's right," Gunnar said firmly. "That's all anyone can ask." Eliana hesitated, her gaze drifting to the horizon. "I've seen so much, fought to protect so many, and yet I've always struggled with one thing." "What's that?" Gunnar asked. Eliana's voice was barely above a whisper. "Letting people in, trusting them, leaning on them. My duty has always come first. But with you, it's different." Gunnar's expression tightened, a flicker of emotion breaking through his usual stoicism. "Eliana?" She raised a hand, cutting him off gently. "I'm not asking for answers, Gunnar. I just needed to say it." Before he could respond, a faint hum echoed through the courtyard. Both turned toward the opening gate as if signaling an incoming arrival. "They're here," Eliana said, rising gracefully. Eli stepped through first, the robotic mule following close behind. Her silver hair caught the sunlight, and her expression was focused but pleased. Darren emerged next, his usual smirk in place as he adjusted the strap on his rifle. "Mission accomplished," Darren announced, spreading his arms theatrically. "No explosions, no casualties, and the mule is still in one piece. You're welcome." Eli rolled her eyes, clearly exasperated but too tired to argue. "The artisans have everything they need to start production. We're ready to move forward." Gunnar stood, his sharp blue eye scanning them both. "Good work. Let's get back to Earth." Eliana stepped forward, her calm presence grounding the moment. "Before we go, there's something you should know." All eyes turned to her as she gestured toward the portal. "Maelorion will be joining us. He wishes to see Earth for himself and inspect the workshop." Darren's eyebrows shot up. "The senior council guy, coming with us? Great. No pressure." Eli smirked. "Try not to embarrass us." "I make no promises," Darren replied, his grin widening. Gunnar shook his head, but there was a faint glint of amusement in his eye. "Let's move." The portal shimmered with a radiant glow, its energy thrumming softly in the still air. The team gathered near its edge, ready for the transition back to Earth. Gunnar adjusted his gear, his sharp eye scanning the group. Maelorion approached with Eliana, his composed demeanor commanding attention. Darren and Eli exchanged a glance as the senior council member stopped before them, his piercing gaze appraising. Maelorion, Eliana began, her tone respectful but steady. These are two of Gunnar's most trusted team members. This is Eliandra Light, our technomancer and magical specialist. Eli inclined her head politely, her posture straight. It's an honor to meet you, Counselor. And this, Eliana continued, her tone shifting slightly, is Darren, tactical expert. Darren extended a hand with his signature smirk. Nice to meet you, Counselor. Welcome to our side of the fight. Maelorion regarded Darren's hand for a moment before clasping it briefly. Your reputation precedes you, Darren. I hope your skills are as sharp as your wit. Darren chuckled. You'll find out soon enough. Gunnar stepped forward, his tone decisive. We're all here for the same purpose. Let's move. The transition back to Earth was as disorienting as ever, the twisting light and sensation of being pulled through space, momentarily unsettling. When they emerged, the familiar grounds of the Echo Division workshop greeted them, a stark contrast to the ethereal beauty of Alfheim. Maelorion took a moment to survey his surroundings, the workshop's sprawling expanse, with its blend of mystical energy and advanced technology, seemed to intrigue him. His sharp gaze lingered on the fortified main building, the towering trees that shielded the perimeter, and the faint hum of wards that resonated in the air. So, Maelorion said, his tone measured, this is the heart of your operation. Gunnar nodded. It is, and now that you're here, you'll see why it's essential to what we do. The team moved through the workshop's key areas, Gunnar leading the way. He started with the armory and tech lab, where Eli's workbench was a controlled chaos of glowing artifacts and tech devices. This is where Eli works her magic, Gunnar said, gesturing to the setup. Literally. Maelorion observed the intricate devices with interest. Impressive. Your fusion of magic and technology is unconventional, but effective. Eli smiled faintly. We do what we can with what we have. Next was the medical bay, where advanced medical equipment mingled with elven healing supplies. Maelorion's gaze lingered on a set of runes engraved into the walls, designed for rapid recovery in supernatural cases. Practical, Maelorion remarked. Though I sense these runes are not of Alfheim. They're hybrid runes, Eli explained, designed by me and inspired by Alfheim's techniques. As they moved through the training grounds, the sound of simulated combat echoed from the underground chambers. Ashley and Desera were sparring in the reinforced holographic simulation room. Both paused when the group entered, their eyes narrowing slightly at the unfamiliar presence of Maelorion. Team, Gunnar said, his tone commanding but calm. This is Maelorion, senior council member of the Guardians, and now Earth's appointed guardian. Ashley wiped sweat from her brow and nodded respectfully. Welcome. Desera simply inclined her head, her expression unreadable. Maelorion's gaze shifted between them. Your team is diverse. Each of you brings something unique. It's clear why Gunnar values you. The final stop was the secure portal room, located deep beneath the workshop. Gunnar led the way, the air growing cooler as they descended. The fortified chamber glowed faintly with runes, its structure radiating both magic and security. This, Gunnar said, gesturing to the portal anchor in the center, is where the gateway to Alfheim will be established. Once it's operational, it'll be the safest connection point between our realms. Maelorion walked slowly around the room, his hands clasped behind his back. You've thought of everything. Reinforcements, wards, redundancies. I can see why Eliana vouches for this place. She helped us design it, Gunnar said, a rare note of appreciation in his tone. Maelorion stopped, turning to face Gunnar. Then it appears I've made the right decision. Let's hope the rest of the council sees it that way as well. As they returned to the main building, Gunnar addressed the team. Get some rest and prepare for tomorrow. Maelorion will be staying with us while we finalize the plans for the nexus investigation. Darren grinned. Guess I should clean my room, huh? Eli rolled her eyes. Or at least keep your sarcasm to a minimum. I make no promises, Darren replied. As the team dispersed, Maelorion approached Gunnar. Your people are unorthodox, but effective. I look forward to seeing how this unfolds. Gunnar met his gaze evenly. You won't be disappointed. The late afternoon sun filtered through the trees, casting a golden glow over the courtyard as Gunnar led Maelorion and Eliana to the heart of Echo Division's sanctuary. The faint hum of mystical energy grew stronger as they approached, the runes etched into the ancient stone resonating softly. This, Gunnar said, gesturing around the courtyard, is the core of our operation. It's more than just a place, it's where everything comes together. Eliana's gaze swept over the space, her expression softening. I can feel it. The energy here, it's ancient and pure. A perfect balance. Maelorion stepped forward, his sharp eyes taking in every detail. Remarkable. This courtyard is far more than it seems. Gunnar nodded. It's been here long before we found it. We built the workshop around it, but this is what keeps us grounded. As if on cue, a soft rustling came from the forest's edge. Alpha, Gunnar's massive dire wolf, emerged first, his silver-grey coat shimmering faintly in the sunlight. He moved with the quiet authority of a seasoned protector, his piercing eyes locking onto Maelorion. Omega, Clora's spirited young wolf, bounded out next, his energy a stark contrast to Alpha's calm. He circled the group, his keen nose taking in the unfamiliar scents. Beta, Ashley's sleek grey wolf, followed with measured steps, her presence steady and watchful. They're magnificent, Eliana said, her voice filled with quiet awe. Their bond with you. It's unlike anything I've seen. Gunnar crouched as Alpha approached, running a hand over the wolf's thick fur. They're more than companions, they're family. And this courtyard strengthens that bond. Omega nudged Clora playfully before turning his attention to Maelorion, who stood still as the young wolf sniffed him curiously. Your spirit animals are as curious as they are powerful, Maelorion remarked, offering his hand for Omega to inspect. They're part of what makes us the pack, Clora said, her pride evident. They keep us connected, to each other and to this place. Aliena moved to the central stone platform, her hands brushing over the glowing runes. This energy, it feels similar to the ley lines in Alfheim, but it's been shaped differently, more raw. Gunnar stepped beside her. We've only scratched the surface of what this place can do. Eli's working on ways to connect it to the portal room below, to make sure it's fortified. Maelorion turned to face Gunnar. You've built something extraordinary here. A bridge between realms in all but name. It's clear why you fight so hard to protect it. It's not just about the workshop, Gunnar replied, his tone firm. It's about the people who depend on it. The pack, Echo Division, the allies we've made. This place is their shield. As the group stood in the courtyard, the wolves settled near their respective partners, a quiet stillness falling over the space. The blend of natural energy and supernatural connection was palpable, weaving an unspoken bond between everyone present. Maelorion, Eliana said, breaking the silence, you see now why this workshop is so vital. It's not just a base, it's a sanctuary. Maelorion inclined his head, his expression thoughtful. I do. And I understand now why you fight so fiercely for Earth's balance. This place is proof of what can be achieved when realms unite. Gunnar glanced at Eliana, his eyes softening slightly. This courtyard isn't just a reminder of what we're fighting for. It's a reminder of who we're fighting with. As the conversation in the courtyard wound down, Gunnar glanced at Maelorion and Aeliana. The wolves had settled into a calm watchfulness, and the energy of the courtyard seemed to pulse with quiet anticipation. "Any questions?" Gunnar asked, his tone straightforward. Maelorion shook his head, his piercing gaze sweeping over the courtyard one last time. "None for now. This place speaks for itself." Aeliana nodded in agreement. "It's a testament to your leadership, Gunnar. There's nothing quite like it." Gunnar gave a short nod, then gestured toward the main building. "Good. If you're hungry, Bianca's been preparing something special. You're about to taste the best Italian cooking this side of the realms." Eliana's lips curved into a small smile. "That's a claim I'll gladly test." The warm, inviting scent of garlic, herbs, and roasted vegetables filled the air as the group entered the dining hall. Bianca stood at the head of the large, polished table, her dark hair tied back and a warm smile lighting up her face. "Welcome," she said, her hands gesturing toward the spread. "I've prepared something special for our esteemed guests." The table was a feast of Italian delicacies. Rich lasagna layered with the finest cheeses, handmade gnocchi in a creamy pesto sauce, and golden focaccia sprinkled with rosemary and sea salt. At the center was Bianca's signature dish, osso buco, braised to perfection and served with saffron risotto. "I've paired it with the best wine I could find," Bianca added, motioning to a collection of deep red and golden bottles. "Only the best for our guests." Maelorion's eyebrows lifted slightly, the faintest trace of amusement crossing his face. "It seems the reputation of Earth's hospitality is well earned." Jules, seated at the far end of the table, raised a glass in welcome. "You're in for a treat. Bianca's cooking is legendary." "Enough talking," Bianca said, waving them toward their seats. "Eat before it gets cold." As the group settled in, the atmosphere shifted from formal to relaxed. Plates clinked, and the air filled with laughter and conversation. Even Maelorion, initially reserved, seemed to ease into the warmth of the gathering. Aeliana took a sip of the red wine, her eyes widening slightly. "This is exceptional." "Of course it is," Bianca said with a wink. "I don't serve anything less." Darren leaned back in his chair, a satisfied grin on his face. "You outdid yourself, Bianca. This might even beat that lasagna you made last year." "Might," Bianca shot back, narrowing her eyes playfully. "Don't make me take your plate away." Jewel chuckled softly, her gaze shifting to Maelorion. "You seem quiet. How does this compare to Alfheim's cuisine?" Maelorion set his fork down, his expression thoughtful. "It is different. Alfheim's dishes are lighter, more attuned to the natural magic of the ingredients. But this," he gestured to his nearly empty plate, "is a celebration of richness and depth. A different kind of magic, perhaps." Bianca beamed. "I'll take that as a compliment." As the meal continued, Aeliana leaned toward Gunnar, her voice low. "You've built something extraordinary here. It's not just a base. It's a home." Gunnar met her gaze, his expression softening. "It's the people who make it that way." Her smile lingered, and for a moment the noise around them seemed to fade. But before the silence could stretch, Darren clinked his glass, drawing everyone's attention. "To Bianca," he said, raising his wine, "for feeding us so well and for putting up with all of us." The group echoed the toast, laughter ringing out as they drank. Even Maelorion raised his glass, the faintest smile tugging at his lips.
"Well, you found your way to the end, haven't you? That must mean you're curious, and we love curiosity around here. Before you vanish into the ether, take a moment to subscribe. It's just a click, and trust me, you'll want to stay in the loop for what comes next. And while you're at it, give the video a like. The energy exchange is good for you. Hit that notification bell too. You wouldn't want to miss out on any of our magical misadventures. Who knows what I might conjure up next. All right, off you go. But remember, I'll know if you didn't subscribe. See you on the other side.